ever feel like sometimes getting a drug approved is this massive, like, mysterious thing?
Yeah.
Can it feel like a black box, right?
Yeah.
Like you throw your application in and hope for the best.
Right.
But today, we're cracking that box wide open.
Okay.
Especially the chemistry, manufacturing, controls part, the CMC.
Okay.
We're really zeroing in on that.
Makes sense.
Because, let's be real, that CMC stuff, that's make or break for getting a new drug into the hands of patients.
It really is the foundation for everything else.
No pressure, right?
Right.
Luckily, we've got this document. It's called Accelerating the Path to Approval. It's kind of like, our cheat sheet for this deep dive.
Okay.
You ready to jump in?
Let's do it.
Okay, so first up, this document, they keep hammering this point home about engaging with those regulatory bodies.
Right.
The FDA.
Right.
Early.
Early and often.
And not just a quick, like, hey, what's up? How you doing?
Yeah, right, yeah.
But really getting down to brass tacks.
Okay.
So your opinion, why is that early engagement so crucial?
Well, it's kind of like getting a head start on a puzzle, right?
Okay.
You could try to force pieces together in the dark.
In the dark.
Or you could turn the lights on and see the bigger picture from the beginning.
Ah, I like that.
Yeah.
So instead of just like showing up at the FDA's door with like a half-baked product.
With a surprise.
Yeah. You're saying, hey, let's bake this cake together.
Exactly.
Right.
Early engagement, it helps you understand the FDA's expectations right from the start. You can get their feedback on your manufacturing process, your quality controls, all of it.
Right.
It's about working collaboratively.
Yeah.
Instead of just trying to guess what they want.
Right, because who wants to do that?
Exactly.
Nobody.
Waste of time.
And the document actually gives this great example of a small biopharmaceutical company.
Okay.
They were developing a monoclonal antibody.
Okay.
They took this whole early engagement thing to heart.
Good.
Had a bunch of sit-down meetings with the FDA early on.
Great.
And guess what?
What?
Their NDA submission basically sailed through.
That's not surprising. I mean, that early alignment with the FDA's expectations, it's like a golden ticket.
Yeah.
It can shave off so much time.
Yeah.
And reduce those chances of getting blindsided later down the line.
Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
Okay, so early engagement, check. Now this next part, this really caught my eye.
Okay.
The document keeps talking about a risk-based approach.
Okay.
It sounds so official,
It does.
But what does that actually mean in practice?
Yeah.
Like if I'm developing a new drug, what am I even thinking about?
So it's all about being proactive.
Okay.
Instead of waiting for something to go wrong, you're constantly asking yourself, what if?
What if?
At every stage of the process.
Right.
For example, what if there's a problem with your raw materials?
Okay.
What if your manufacturing process isn't consistent?
Yeah.
What if it breaks apart when you ship it?
Right, right.
So many what ifs.
It's like a constant game of what if.
Yes.
But with really, really high stakes.
Exactly. And the key is not just identifying those risks, but figuring out how to mitigate them.
Right.
You've got to have a plan.
You can't just say, what if?
Exactly.
You got to be like, well, if this happens, then we'll do this.
Exactly.
Right.
Have a backup.
Okay, so you've got to have a plan to address these things before they become a major problem.
Yes.
And you have to be able to show the FDA you've thought about all of this, right?
Absolutely. Documentation is key.
Yes, write it all down.
The FDA wants to see that you've done your homework right direct.
Okay.
That you understand the potential problems.
Right.
And that you've got a solid plan to keep things on track.
So it's not enough to just, think about it. You've got to have proof.
Proof. Exactly.
Right. This reminds me of there was a company, they were developing a new oral dosage form.
Okay.
And they were really on top of it.
Okay.
They thought of everything that could go wrong, all those variables
right.
that could impact the quality, and the FDA was super impressed.
And that's what you want, that kind of meticulous documentation. It builds trust with regulatory agencies.
Shows you're not messing around.
Exactly.
You're taking this seriously.
It shows you care.
Right. Okay, so it's not enough to just identify the risks.
Right.
You've got to demonstrate that you have a handle on them.
Yes.
Speaking of getting a handle on things, let's talk about analysis and validation.
Okay, yeah.
Step 3.
Okay.
This document makes a big deal out of having strong strategies in place.
Yeah.
To prove your testing methods are good, they're on point.
Right.
This is where the science really comes in, right?
This is where the science really shines. You can have the most amazing analytical methods in the world.
Okay.
But if you can't prove they're accurate and reliable
Yeah.
and consistent,
Right.
you're sunk.
You're sunk.
That's what validation is all about. Proving your methods do exactly what they're supposed to do without a shadow of a doubt.
Okay, so what happens if you don't have this rock-solid validation in place?
Oh, boy.
Let's say I'm feeling a little too confident.
Overconfident.
Right, and I decide to just skip a few steps.
Don't do that.
What's the worst that could happen?
Oh, let me tell you. The FDA will not hesitate
Oh, no.
to hit the brakes on your application.
Really?
If they have any doubts about your data, gone.
They'll just say, see you later.
We're talking delays,
No.
requests for more information, even outright rejection.
Oh, no. So you're basically back to square one.
It can be a nightmare, not to mention incredibly costly and time-consuming.
Time is money.
Exactly.
So validation, not the place to cut corners.
Not at all.
And, this document gives an example of a biosimilar company
Okay.
that really went all in
Good. I love to hear that.
on a very robust
Yeah.
analytical method validation strategy.
Excellent.
Because they wanted to prove that their product was similar to the, reference product.
Right.
They really wanted to hit it home.
Of course.
And they basically sailed through their BLA review because of it.
Because they had the data.
Data is king.
Data is king,
It's-
especially when you're dealing with something as important as bringing new drugs to market.
Right, absolutely. Okay, so we've got early engagement. We've got risk assessment.
Okay.
We've got validation.
Check.
This next one, this seems to tie into everything we've talked about so far.
Okay.
Transparency.
Ah, yes.
This document really stresses the importance of clear, well-organized CMC documentation.
Right.
It's almost like they're saying, don't even try to hide the bumps in the road.
It's funny you should say that because that's exactly what they're saying.
Really?
Transparency with the FDA isn't about being perfect.
Okay.
It's about being honest. They understand that drug development is complex.
Right.
There will be challenges.
There will be bumps.
Exactly.
So it's more about owning up to those challenges.
Yes.
And showing how you overcame them.
Precisely. And the document highlights this case study of a company that had some issues with impurity control during development.
Okay.
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But instead of trying to downplay it or hide it, they were very upfront about it.
Okay.
Meticulously documented their whole investigation, the corrective actions they took, everything.
And what happened? Did the FDA throw the book at them?
Quite the opposite, actually.
Real.
Their transparency actually helped build trust with the agency. It showed they were taking the issue seriously and were committed to finding a solution.
Wow. So honesty really is the best policy.
Especially when you're dealing with the FDA.
Right.
They're not looking for perfection.
They're looking for you to be on top of it.
They're looking for a commitment to quality and safety.
Right. Okay, so we've covered 4 key steps so far.
4 down.
We've got one more to go in this whole 5-step strategy.
Okay.
And it's something that seems to be woven throughout this entire document.
Okay.
Continuous risk assessment.
Ah, yes.
It's not a one-time thing. It's something you're doing all the time.
You got it. It's all about being proactive and vigilant. Think of it like this. You're driving down a winding road.
Okay.
And you're constantly scanning for potential hazards. You're not waiting for a deer to jump out in front of you. You're anticipating it.
Right. You're looking for it.
Exactly. You're anticipating it, and you're prepared to react if it happens.
You're not just reacting to the deer in the headlights. You're thinking ahead.
Exactly.
So you're always looking ahead, trying to anticipate those what-ifs. What are some of those common risks in CMC that companies should be watching out for?
Well, it really depends on the specific drug, and how it's made.
Right.
But there are definitely some, usual suspects, variations in your raw materials.
All right, because you've got to have the right stuff to start with.
Exactly. And then, is the manufacturing process going smoothly?
Uh-huh.
Any hiccups there?
Right. So many things can go wrong.
And then just making sure that, once you make the drug, it's going to stay stable.
Yeah.
You've got to store it.
Ship it.
Ship it.
It's got to get to the patient, yeah.
Exactly. Even the packaging can be a risk if you're not careful.
Really? Packaging? I never would have thought about that.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a never-ending game of whack-a-mole. How do you keep track of it all?
Well, that's where having a really solid quality management system is key. But even more than that, it's about building a culture of quality.
A culture of quality.
Yeah, throughout your entire company.
So it's not just the CMC team.
Exactly. It's everyone's responsibility.
Oh, everyone's thinking about it.
Everyone's thinking about quality from the very beginning.
It's like that saying, teamwork makes the dream work.
Exactly. You've got to work together. And speaking of teamwork, remember that company we talked about, the one developing that complex parenteral drug?
Yeah.
They were on their game when it came to risk assessment.
Okay.
Especially with those stability and sterility concerns. With that type of drug delivery, it's extra important.
Right. You can't mess around with that stuff.
Exactly. And they kept the FDA in the loop every step of the way,
Okay.
showing them how they were identifying and mitigating those risks.
Yeah. And the FDA loved that.
Right.
It seems like that open communication was key.
You nailed it. It's all about building trust and demonstrating that you're not, just going through the motions. You're really thinking about these things and you're committed to finding solutions.
So it's like you're not just checking boxes.
No.
You're showing them you're really invested in this.
Exactly.
It's like having the FDA as a partner instead of some kind of adversary.
Exactly. You want them on your team, and the best way to do that is to be open, honest, and proactive.
Makes sense. So we've covered their 5-step strategy for building this solid CMC foundation.
We've got early engagement.
We've got the risk-based approach.
Yeah.
We've got analytical validation.
We've got transparency.
Yeah. And we've got continuous monitoring of those risks.
Keep an eye on those things.
It's a lot to juggle.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something we mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Those FDA and ICH guidelines.
Yes.
Because they can feel a little bit like reading another language.
Oh, I know. They can be a bit much sometimes.
Right. Like, what are they even talking about?
Right. But, think of these guidelines kind of like a roadmap.
Okay.
Something created by, these regulatory bodies to try to make sense of everything, to help you navigate this, often confusing world of drug development.
Right.
They're there to make sure you're meeting all the standards, for quality, safety, efficacy, all the important stuff.
So it's like having a cheat sheet for drug development.
You could say that. They're full of best practices,
Right.
Clear expectations.
Keep you on the straight and narrow.
Exactly. A comprehensive instruction manual, kind of.
That makes sense. And I know there are a lot of different guidelines out there.
Oh, yeah. Tons.
Maybe we could just pick one.
Okay.
Just so our listeners can get a taste of what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let's dive into ICH Q8R2 on pharmaceutical development.
Okay, I got to ask, who comes up with these titles?
Right. They're a mouthful.
They're a mouthful. They're very catchy. But anyway, this guideline, you said it's an important one.
This one's a biggie. It basically promotes a science-based and risk-based approach to developing new pharmaceuticals. And it really emphasizes something called quality by design.
Hold on, let's break that down.
Yeah.
Quality by design. That sounds important.
It's a mouthful.
What does it actually mean in practice?
So basically, it means you're building quality into the product from the get-go.
Right.
Instead of trying to, kind of tack it on at the end, you're thinking about how everything, the formulation, the manufacturing process, even the packaging, we just talked about that, can impact the quality and the safety and ultimately the effectiveness of that final product.
So you're not just following a recipe blindly.
Exactly.
You're really understanding the science behind it.
It's all about proactive planning and control, but based on good, solid science.
Got it.
Yeah.
So how does this guideline, ICH Q8R2, how does that all fit into the big picture of getting a drug approved?
So this guideline, it gives companies a framework to design and develop their products and their manufacturing processes in a way that consistently delivers that high level of quality that the FDA expects.
Because they're not messing around.
Not at all.
They have high standards.
Very high standards. And when you have that control and that understanding of your process, it's much easier to demonstrate that your product is going to meet those standards.
Right.
Every single time.
It's like you're both speaking the same language.
Exactly.
You and the FDA.
Exactly. And that shared understanding, let me tell you, it can save everyone a ton of time, money, and frustration in the long run.
I bet. No one wants to do anything twice.
Exactly.
It's much better to get it right the first time.
Exactly.
It's true.
Yeah.
And it's not just about speaking the same language. It's like they're almost like a partner in this whole thing.
Yeah.
Rather than some hurdle you got to get over.
Right, exactly. And when you have that kind of relationship, it just makes everything smoother.
Definitely. So to sum up this whole accelerating the path to approval thing, it seems like it's all about working smarter, not harder.
Absolutely. It's about strategy.
Planning. And really understanding the process from A to Z.
Exactly. And not being afraid to, get your hands dirty and really dig into the details.
And to ask for help when you need it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because no one knows.
No one's an island, right?
Exactly. And hey, this document even mentions this company
Oh, yeah.
called Increasy.
Increasy. Okay.
And they're all about helping companies navigate, this whole CMC maze. So if you're listening and you're feeling a little overwhelmed,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to phone a friend, right?
Exactly. Sometimes you just need a little backup.
Right. So if you're feeling stuck, reach out to the experts. It might be just what the doctor ordered.
Definitely something to consider.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We sure have.
This whole world of CMC.
The ins and outs of drug approval.
We talked about those 5 steps for a solid strategy.
5 steps to success.
And we even deciphered one of those, top secret ICH guidelines.
We cracked the code.
We cracked the code. But all jokes aside, I really hope this deep dive has demystified this process at least a little bit.
Me too. It's complex, but it's doable.
It is doable.
Absolutely.
And there are resources available, and there are experts who can help.
Absolutely. And that's the key takeaway here.
So for anyone out there feeling, a little overwhelmed by all this, just remember, you are not alone.
We're all in this together.
We are all in this together. And if you ever find yourself needing another deep dive into the wild world of drug development, well,
you know where to find us.
You know where to find us. Until next time, stay curious, everyone.
And stay informed.
And keep asking those questions.